Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to give you my word that if you watch this video to the end, you will be fully equipped to deal with mold toxicity. I've spent the last 10 years of my life recovering from mold illness. I've now worked with over 1,000 clients, specifically with mold-related health problems. This has become my day in, day out. This is the topic that I know better than any topic on earth. And today, I'm going to give you a complete, updated, step-by-step guide to recover from mold illness. Now, this is a broad topic, but I want to try to simplify it, and I want to make it a step-by-step process that you can just simply follow to heal. So the first caveat I have to give you with such a complex issue is, if I suggest anything and you know that it isn't the right thing for you, then don't do it. You know your body better than me. Healing is a process that you orchestrate. It's something that you have to decide what is right for you. So through this whole process, listen to your body and put your judgment first. So let's get started. I've got 6 total steps and I've split them up into 2 separate sections. The first is stabilize. The second is mobilize. We have to start on the stabilize part first because your body is intelligent. It doesn't want to mobilize stored toxicity if it's in a state of crisis. If you're in a place where you are still experiencing histamine intolerance, mast cell activation syndrome, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, if you are experiencing debilitating fatigue, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, if it's anything like this right now, you need to focus on stabilize. Healing mold toxicity takes a long time. To really pull all of these deep mold toxins out of these deep storage sites takes a long time. But you can literally feel, and I say this with confidence because I've seen it many, many times, you can feel 60 to 80% better in between 3 and 6 months. This is what most people are searching for, but they're stuck in the crisis phase and the symptoms aren't being managed correctly. And you're trying to mobilize, you're trying to pull more out. And this is not how this works. So first, we have to get you to a point where you are stable. If we can get you to a point of stability, this is actually the best thing that we can do, not only because it improves your quality of life and reduces the amount of symptoms that you're experiencing, but if we can create a state of balance and function in your body will naturally begin to pull toxins from the deep storage sites and begin to process them automatically, because that's what your body does. It knows how to heal, it knows how to fix itself, but we have to create the right environment. So it's really important that we don't skip steps. Don't jump to the mobilize phase until you have concretely perfected this initial stabilize phase. We have to get you stable first. So now I briefly want to jump you through the chapters. I want to tell you what these 6 steps are so that you've got an idea of them. And then we're going to work from step 1 to step 6. We're going to work in the order in which you need to conduct this process. So this is literally a step-by-step guide for how mold toxins leave through your body. And we're literally doing it in a step-by-step process because we need to follow the steps from how the toxins actually are in the body, where they're stored, and how they actually come out. We need to follow this step-by-step mechanism. And we start at the bottom and work our way up. So the first step is the bowels. We need to get the bowels moving. Next is the microbiome. We need to support the microbiome health. It's very common when you're dealing with mold toxicity. We've got SIBO, we've got SIFO, we've got parasites, we've got all of these different gut dysbiosis and all of the associated symptoms: bloating, gas, reflux, indigestion, etc. From there, we've got bile flow. All of these toxins, these are fat-soluble toxins. They leave through the bile. So we have to make sure that we improve bile flow. These 3 steps, these first 3 steps, these are the stabilize phase. We have to get you stable first, which means we have to focus on these. After this, we move into the mobilize phase where we have another 3 steps. In these steps, we will look at the liver. So we're looking at liver support. So this is specifically, we're looking primarily at the phase 2 liver detoxification processes, and we're providing your body with support in these processes. So this is things like methylation, glutathione conjugation, acetylation, glucuronidation, transsulfuration, all of these liver pathways. I know it sounds technical. We don't have to go there yet. We need to start on that stabilize part first anyway. But we're going to come to here and I'm going to walk you through this. From there, we need to improve the circulation of toxins that are moving in the body. We need to help them get funneled into the liver so then the liver can do these processes and begin to remove them. And finally, the last step is this true mobilization from the cell. This is where we literally want to find the cells that are full of toxins that have become polluted, and we're literally going to like shake them. We're going to shake these cells so that all of the toxins, these mold toxins that they've stored, come out. The thing is, if we do this first, you're going to fill the body with toxicity and it's not going to be able to deal with any of it. You're going to have herxheimer reaction. You're going to have die-off reactions. You're going to feel absolutely terrible. And not only are you going to do all of this, you're also not going to help yourself heal. Doing this does not help you heal. This whole process should feel good. If you're feeling herx symptoms, if you're feeling die-off, if you're feeling detox symptoms, you're doing this too fast. You're being arrogant. You're pushing against the intelligence of your body, and your body is so much more intelligent than you. Your body is what does all of the healing. The sooner that you can surrender to the wisdom and the intelligence of your body, not only will you heal faster, you'll also feel better through the healing journey. So please work with your body. Learn from my mistakes. You know, I didn't do it this way initially and it didn't work and it made me feel horrible and it made my journey take way longer than it had to. So please follow these steps because I've learned them through all the pain and suffering of my own healing journey. And I really want to save you from that. So we're going to rewind and go all the way to the bottom and we're going to work our way up. So at the beginning of the stabilized phase, we have bowel movements. We have to make sure that you are having at least one bowel movement every 3 days at an absolute minimum. I would ideally prefer if you were having one like good bowel movement every single day. That would be ideal. That would be like the optimal sweet spot. But if you are having a bowel movement any less than once every 3 days, you are going to bioaccumulate so much toxicity that every other thing that we do is just simply not going to work. It's also better if you aren't constantly experiencing diarrhea. If you're having diarrhea all of the time, if your stools are really loose, if you're having more than 3 bowel movements a day, especially if the consistency is not very well formed, if they're very loose or they have fuzzy edges, then you're not extracting and absorbing your nutrients. And all of these detoxification processes from up here, you know, the methylation stuff, the liver stuff, the mobilizing from the cell, these all cost a lot of calories. They all cost a lot of minerals and vitamins. It's really important that the gut is working well because we need to nourish the body through this. It cannot detox without nourishment. So it's really important that we investigate how can we manage these symptoms better. If you're on the constipation side, the easiest and the most practical way that I've found to manage this is using enemas. You can literally at this phase just use a water enema just to relieve the bowels once every 3 days. You could even do this daily if you wanted. You could also look at things like magnesium citrate, or honestly at this stage, if you're going for 3 days and you haven't had a bowel movement, even the conventional laxatives that you get from like a gastroenterologist doctor, like Movicol or those laxatives, I would consider using those, because if you aren't moving your bowels at least once every 3 days, this toxicity is just accumulating inside of your body. And if it accumulates to a certain point, it starts to cause extremely horrible, horrific health problems. Chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disease, the big C. There's a lot of things that will happen if your body cannot eliminate toxicity. So this absolutely has to happen. If you're on the diarrhea side, usually this means that you're reactive to something, you're sensitive to something that you're eating. Unfortunately, this usually does mean you need to restrict the diet a little bit more. We need to figure out what it is that you're not tolerating. We need to try to provide digestive support. The best like practical step that I could give you, because everyone can have such a different presentation, would actually be to check out my gut health quiz. The reason for this is, first of all, it's completely free. I really want to help you. I really want you to feel in control and to have clarity in your healing journey. If your bowel movements aren't working properly, your whole detox is jeopardized. And this is why it is the absolute priority. We have to focus here as the first thing. My gut health quiz is a quiz that you can take. You literally answer 90 yes or no questions. So it's like, do you experience constipation? Do you experience reflux? Do you experience bloating? Have you had this? Have you taken this medication? It's like yes or no. It's really, really easy. You can do it in less than 5 minutes. I know 90 questions sounds like a lot. It's really not. You'll fly through it like 5 minutes. When you do this, it will generate you a personalized report. It's literally like a custom report just for you based on your answers to the questions. This is going to help you figure out what's going wrong in your digestive system and how to provide specifically appropriate support for you based on the context of the symptoms. It's not perfect, but it's completely free and it's going to get you aimed really in the right direction. So if you're still at the stage where you've got seriously unmanaged digestive issues and your bowels are constipation, diarrhea, or alternating, I would definitely check out the quiz because it's going to give you far more personalized insight than I can just in a YouTube video like this. But this is the absolute priority. Even if your bowels are doing like pretty well, still consider checking out because this is the most important step. Because if this step doesn't work, you can do all of the other ones. And I literally see people do this. You know, they're taking binders, they're doing the sauna, they're doing all of these things, and they still have all of these problems because these are all things that are moving these up parts. These are in the mobilization phase and they're not stable. They haven't got the bowels moving. These things aren't working correctly. So check out the quiz. It will give you actionable steps for this point. The next step above here is we need to work on the microbiome. The reason that working on the microbiome is so important is that, one, molds and mycotoxins are extremely antibacterial. They're basically like antibiotics. They will kill your beneficial gut flora. They're going to kill them and then they're going to crowd them out and you can become colonized by yeasts. You can have lots of candida growth. And it's not these things that are the organism. It's the fact that your natural bacteria has been inhibited by these organisms. It's also really important that we restore this appropriate bacteria because in a healthy human individual, your gut microbiome is like a binder factory. Probiotics are the best binders for mycotoxins. This is why a lot of people that are very like robust and healthy can live in an environment that is water damaged. And a lot of the time, I see this all the time. There's usually a family and one person in the family gets sick and everybody else in the family is okay. And this often leads to a lot of almost like a gaslighting or questioning like, are you actually sick? Is this in your head? Why is everybody else not sick? Surely everyone would be sick if it was the house. The thing is, this is usually the person that gets sick is the person that's the most immune compromised. Usually they didn't get breastfed or they were cesarean section birth or they had more of the pokey treatments when they were young or they've been on several courses of antibiotics and they've already weakened their microbiome. There's a lot of different factors that can influence how healthy and robust the microbiome is. But it's essential because it's our first layer of protection against toxins. Is literally a binder factory. We use probiotics and the substances that they produce to protect us from toxins. So if we don't do this, not only are you going to continue to bioaccumulate more and more toxins because there's pesticides in the foods that you eat, even if they're organic, you're going to smell petrol fumes. People use air conditioners, laundry detergent, dish soap, there's toxins everywhere. And if you haven't restored this natural binder mechanism that's supposed to be present in every single human, which is your gut flora, you're just going to keep accumulating toxicity and you're going to continue to get sick. Binders, things like activated charcoal and clays and things like that. But what we really want to do, if you actually want to heal long term, you need to restore the mechanisms that have been broken. This is one reason that mold toxicity is so sinister, is not only does it poison you, it overtly poisons you. Most mycotoxins are considered to be potentially biological weapons. They are so powerfully toxic. So if we don't support your body in being able to remove these through its own natural mechanisms, it's never going to pull stored toxicity. It's never going to choose to do that. So the first place I usually start the majority of my clients is on the delactate-free probiotic by Custom Probiotics. The reason that I like this probiotic is delactate-free, is histamine-free, is histamine degrading, so it helps to break down histamine. And the species that are in it, it has 6 strains of Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. They are the most gentle for us to get started with, and they are truly physiologically appropriate strains. They serve this binder function. They also regulate host immunity. These are organisms that are present in every microbiome of every healthy individual in all of the different places all over the world, regardless of diet. So these are core essential microbes, and if your body is missing them, you are simply going to not feel as good as if you had them. These are literally they're almost as important as an organ. I really think about the microbiome as an organ. And if you're missing the key microbes that make up your microbiome, you're missing this organ. So this is a really nice place to start. There are further steps from here. I actually have a full step-by-step probiotic guide that you could check out. So again, step 1, you've got the quiz. For the second step, we've got a more in-depth video. You can look at the probiotic master guide. I will stick a link somewhere. I'll put links to all of these resources, the quiz, this video. I'll put all of these in the description below. All you need to know to start is to start with this delactate-free probiotic by Custom Probiotics. And then that video will take you through the next several steps. There's 2, 3, 4, 5 more steps that come on from that, but you have to start here. And then we move into the third and final step of the stabilize part of this process, which is we need to improve bile flow. So the reason the bile flow is so important is that it is the mechanism by which your body removes all fat-soluble toxins, and mycotoxins are fat-soluble compounds. And just as with the first point about if you're constipated and your bowels aren't moving, you're holding these toxins, the same is true for your bile. If your bile is not flowing, you're just holding these toxins in your liver, in your bile, in your gallbladder, and it's just going to increase the overall toxicity of your body because it doesn't have an exit. So the first and most important step is to simply increase dietary fat intake. Bile has 3 primary functions. One of them is to digest fats. So if we can increase dietary fat, we are going to stimulate bile synthesis, bile production, and the bile to be released. The other 2 core functions are that we remove all fat-soluble toxins, and the third is that bile acts like soap in that it helps us to clean the small intestine. So as I just mentioned, when we're exposed to mycotoxins, it has a very disruptive effect on the microbiome. We have to get the bile flowing again because the bile is what cleans the small intestine. If I had $1 for every single of my mold clients that also had SIBO or SIFO, I'd have probably like $1,000 because I've had 1,000 clients and every single one has SIBO or SIFO or some sort of digestive problem in the part of the small intestine. And this is because when the health of the bile is jeopardized, we lose the ability to clean the small intestine correctly. And there's this very interesting interplay between the gut and the liver, gallbladder, bile in that they clean each other. So let me just explain this to you. When we eat dietary fat or we do other things that stimulate bile, so things like coffee enemas or digestive bitters or anything that's triggering the bile to be released, the bile will come into the small intestine and the bile literally moves all the way through that small intestine and it cleans it like soap. It's literally, as it's going through, it's like it's scrubbing all of the walls and it's killing all of these bad bacteria. It's killing the SIBO and the SIFO, and it's doing it in a natural way. This is the natural antimicrobial agent that we're supposed to have inside our digestive system. This is what keeps it balanced. But also, as this bile is moving through, our beneficial bacteria, so all of these bacteria that I just talked about, all of these beneficial bacteria that I just talked about in the previous stage, these probiotics, these are taking the bile and they're cleaning the bile. So they're removing the toxins from the bile so that those toxins can be excreted, because bile is very expensive to make. So the body intelligently recycles bile. Once it reaches the last part of the small intestine, 90% of our bile is reabsorbed. It comes back through the portal-hepatic venous system. It goes back to the liver. So if we don't have these beneficial bacteria cleaning all of this mold toxins out of it and binding these mold toxins so that they can be removed in the stool, all of the body's work to try to get rid of these toxins just ends up in recirculation. And those toxins go straight back to the liver and they are still toxic and they're still damaging the liver. They're still depleting nutrients. They're still causing inflammation. And if the liver is overloaded, which is very common if you still haven't achieved stability, if you're still having mast cell flares, if you're still getting like flare-ups and acute reactions, this is basically what happens when your liver becomes overloaded. There's a good likelihood that these toxins are getting released back into the body. So your body has just done all of this work to pull the toxin out of the cell or is collected it from the environment. It puts it in the liver, it methylates it, it conjugates it, does all of this work to try to bind it up, and it puts it in the gut, and then it just reabsorbs and it gets released and it's floating around inside of your body again. And this is why people struggle for such a long time, because the body is just running on a treadmill. It's doing all of this work. It's working, and it's not actually making any progress. And that's why it's so important that we do this in the correct order, because if you don't, then you're just making your body work really hard and you're not actually making any progress. So the first and most important step for this stage is we need to improve dietary fat intake. If you don't digest fats very well, then you just have to start slow and increase according to what you're able to tolerate. I find that generally saturated fats are better. So all animal products are primarily saturated fat. So that's pork fat, that's beef tallow, that's egg yolks, any dairy, All of these are great. And then in the vegetables, you've got coconut oil. That's the only saturated fat. These tend to be the best. It is also fine to have some olive oil, some avocados, some olives, but really we do want to get a good source of saturated fat. It's really important for the quality of the bile. There are 2 supplements that can also be really helpful in my experience at this phase. The first is a trace mineral product, because usually if you've been exposed to a lot of toxic exposure, it creates a depletion state of minerals, and you need minerals to make new bile. So I will flash up a nice trace mineral product on screen somewhere. You can have a look at that. That's one thing to consider. The other is we want some sort of phosphatidylcholine in the diet. This can come from egg yolks. If you want to get it from a product, we could look at something called sunflower lecithin. So this is really high in phospholipid compounds, one of them being phosphatidylcholine. The reason for this is we need a mix of approximately 1 part phosphatidylcholine to 10 parts cholesterol to make bile. So cholesterol we get from the saturated fat. The body can take that saturated fat and turn it into cholesterol. And then we also need a source of choline, phosphatidylcholine, ideally. You could take phosphatidylcholine as a supplement itself, but I would recommend the sunflower lecithin, because the other phospholipid compounds will have a bile thinning effect. So they'll help to make that bile more thin and less sticky. And this is actually going to help to move those toxins even more effectively, and bile to have more of a cleansing effect in the small intestine, and for the microbes in the small intestine to help to clean that bile even better. Because if it's all thick and sticky, it's very hard to get much work done. So if we can thin it out, it's going to be really helpful in letting both sides of the equation do their work. There are also some other things that we can consider, like coffee enemas, liver gallbladder flushes. These things are a little bit more complex. If you're already doing them, great. If you haven't tried them yet, probably it would be better for you to learn about steps 4, 5, and 6 coming up before we consider something that's a little bit more extreme, like these other modalities. But I will say, personally, in my experience, coffee enemas for this next stage, absolutely phenomenal. They really help with bile flow. They really help with moving toxicity. They literally provided me with like a miracle breakthrough where my 8 or 9 out of 10 level of chronic fatigue, pain, and dysfunction in my body reduced to like a 0.5 in 30 minutes. It was a very profound breakthrough experience, extremely effective for me. But when you do coffee enemas, when you do these more intensive detox modalities, you will be depleting nutrients at an extremely high rate. So it's important that when we come to the next stage, where we're looking at these different liver detoxification pathways, we need to make sure that we are providing your liver with all of the resources and all of the ingredients that it needs so that it can keep up with this increased mobilization of toxicity. For us to move on to the next step, I would really be hoping that you're in a point where ideally you're having 1 bowel movement every single day. We're taking a fairly decent dose of probiotics. We're talking at least in the range of roughly, let's say, 100 billion CFUs per day. Ideally, maybe some more. Everyone's a little bit different though. And you're consuming, hopefully, maybe let's say 30 grams of fat 3 times a day. Maybe that's on the bit on the higher end. You don't have to be perfect, but we really want to have a good stimulus where we're allowing the bile to flow. Because if these 3 things aren't happening, anything we do upstream from here is going to be quite challenging. And by challenging, I mean we're going to be putting a lot of metabolic stress on the body. And as a consequence, you might become symptomatic. And that means we're not really doing it right. So next, we're moving on to the liver. And we're trying to support the liver in doing its different detoxification processes. We could go really in depth into each of these different pathways, but I don't think I want to do that today. If you would be interested in me going into a video where we look at all of the different pathways in the liver, so like glutathione conjugation, acetylation, methylation, transsulfuration, all these different phase 2 liver detoxification pathways, if you'd be interested in a deep dive into that, I could do that, but it would have to be its own separate video because it probably would be pushing like 40 minutes or an hour just on that topic alone. So if you would be interested in that, let me know. Leave me a comment below, say, I want the phase 2 detox guide, and I will really put some effort into making that an actual video. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize how do we support these pathways with different supplements or different sort of external modalities. So you don't actually need to know like the technical details as to specifically how it's working, but I can give you the modalities that are going to support all of these pathways. So the first step that I would be looking at here is I would add some broad spectrum support that's going to support vitamins, minerals, enzymes in a very broad way Juicing is absolutely the number one thing that comes to me on this list. It has soluble fibers that help with detox, but they don't cause constipation and they don't irritate the gut. It has polyphenols and antioxidants. It has vitamins and minerals. It provides electrolytes, which are going to deplete doing things like coffee enemas. It is amazing. You don't have to be super complex with it. If you can juice even one single vegetable, even say like celery or courgette or zucchini are very commonly well tolerated. If you can juice any singular vegetable, you're going to get 80 to 90% of the benefits of juicing, even if you just juice one single thing. The upper limit for most people tends to be about 1 liter a day. I know that sounds like a lot, and you might be like, that's expensive, that's a lot of work. This is the foundation of supporting your liver, and it also helps the gut, it helps the bile flow. This is a fundamental modality. If I could just give you one thing to help with every single step through this whole process, it would be juicing. It just ticks every single box that exists. So it is a wonderful foundation to build everything upon. Next, I will want to add some extra nutritional supports. So if you haven't added a trace mineral yet, now will be a really good time to add a trace mineral again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash up a trace mineral here, and I'm going to flash up a B complex here. So on the screen, you're going to be able to see a trace mineral product and a B complex. What we want to do is combine both of these together. They're going to provide lots of nutritive elements that are going to really support your body in doing these metabolic processes. For the B complex, we do want to make sure that it does have methyl donors. We want a methyl B complex. If you are sensitive to methyl donors, I have a video recommendation for you. Surprise, surprise. It looks like I have a video about everything. But that's because these are really in-depth topics that you really need to go deep to explain. I have a guide, it's step-by-step methylation guide, and it talks about this concept of overmethylation. And if you are an overmethylator, so if you're somebody that is very sensitive to the addition of higher levels of methyl donors, it walks you through exactly step-by-step how you can add these methyl donors in a way where it isn't going to cause you so much reactivity. But it's really important that we provide these methyl donors, especially if you have methylation mutations like MTHFR, BH, MTR, and MTRR. It's really important because your body needs methyl donors to do the methylation process. And that's a really important part of clearing histamine, metabolizing mycotoxins, and just general function of your body, clearing neurotransmitters. All these things are important for you to feel good, and you need to feel good for your body to detox correctly. So juicing, add in a B complex and a trace mineral product. This is where we could also look at adding some things to support bile flow even more, but from a nutritive angle. So this could be things like TUDCA, for example. TUDCA is a taurine conjugate of a bile acid. So we're literally thinning that bile out even more and providing more of these raw ingredients for your body to do these detoxification processes and to make that bile flow smoothly. Could also look at something like NAC, N-acetylcysteine. This can function as a biofilm disruptor, although that's not primarily why I like it. I like it because it's a good source of dietary cysteine, which can be really helpful in boosting glutathione levels. At this stage, it's really important that we try to boost your antioxidants in general, and we also want to try to boost specifically your glutathione because there is a pathway called glutathione conjugation, and this is really important for mycotoxin detoxification. A lot of mycotoxins are very reactive to glutathione, and this is why you'll often see people with mold toxicity develop things like chronic fatigue syndrome, which literally is correlated 1-to-1 with glutathione depletion in the body. So we want to try and boost antioxidant systems, and we want to bring glutathione levels higher. NAC is only one way of doing that. I actually have another video that I would recommend you take a look at. This is a concept called antioxidant loading, which is where we use different modalities and different products to step-by-step provide additional antioxidant support to your body in a way that has a much more profound effect than just throwing in one random antioxidant. So if you want to not only make sure you get better value for money, because if you follow this guide, you're going to basically get about 10 times more antioxidant value out of any of the antioxidant products that you get. But it's also going to walk you through step by step the order in which you should introduce these different antioxidant supports. I'm going to give them to you now just so that you've got them, so that you can be aware of them. But if you want an in-depth guide, make sure you check out that video. So the first step is earthing and grounding whilst we sleep. We need to buy some grounding equipment, plugs into the socket, it grounds you while you sleep. This provides a profound amount of antioxidants to your body. Next is the addition of juicing. We already just talked about that. Afterwards, we want to add some extra antioxidants, so things like NAC, things like vitamin C. These can be really, really helpful. Bioflavonoids and polyphenols. This is what we would add at that stage. And then finally, we would add glutathione as an actual supplement itself. If you just add glutathione first, and this is what most people do, it's really expensive and it does not give you the same benefit as if you follow this step-by-step process first. If you want to learn more and figure out and understand why is this, you can go and take a look at that other video. So as for the nutritive side of liver support, that's about where I'm going to end it today. Other than that, just a good nutrient-dense diet, some organ meats, some juicing, some egg yolks. These are the basics in my opinion. But the other thing that we can do is we can provide some binder support. Now, personally, I wouldn't take binders all of the time. Binders will also bind to your vitamins and minerals, and we want to use them in a more targeted way. So what I would suggest is, if we add binders, we want to use them strategically. If we're going to do something like fasting, we can use binders with fasting. If we're going to do coffee enemas, we can do binders with coffee enemas. We kind of want to use binders to level up these other more advanced detox modalities that we have access to. Using binders by themselves, not very effective, because most binders just stay in the gut. And if there isn't that much toxicity moving through the bile, then you're not really going to be getting that much effect from it. So what we want to do is combine the binder with modalities that are increasing the amount of toxicity that we are pulling from the body and pushing into the gut. So something like liver gallbladder flushes, coffee enemas, fasting, sauna, these kinds of things would be when we want to add a binder and we want to use them with these other modalities. So as we go up to steps 5 and 6, you're going to see that we start introducing some more of these things. It can be really nice to pair these with a binder. I personally don't recommend cholestyramine. Cholestyramine literally steals your bile. Bile is very expensive to make. There's a reason that your body recycles it 10 times. And yes, it can bring toxicity down very rapidly, but at what cost? You solve one problem and you create another. And there are far more gentle and, in my opinion, better ways to do it. So if we were looking at binders, I would want to be using probiotics as the number one binder option. And then we could look at products like activated charcoal and clay. These would be the only two sorts of binders that I would recommend. I would be very hesitant with zeolite. If you want, you can do some of your own research into understanding how zeolite interacts with nanotech in the body. That could be an interesting search for you. And things like cholestyramine are stealing your bile. So I don't really like these types of binders either. You could also layer on some extra things like here, Epsom salt baths can be really nice, really helpful for bile flow, really helpful for liver support. You could add castor oil packs. These work really nicely. They go hand in hand with like coffee enemas or the Epsom salt baths. They work really nicely. Very often I'll do a castor oil pack for myself and then have a nice Epsom salt bath after it. And I'll very often do this on a day that I have done a coffee enema. So these types of modalities combine together really, really well, and they really enhance the effect of each other. But if you're going to do this, you have to consider that your body is going to be using a lot of nutrients. You need that vegetable juice. You need those trace minerals. You need a high enough dose of methyl donors and B complex vitamins, because we're upregulating processes, but the body still needs the raw ingredients to be able to do all of these things. The next step is actually the easiest step in this whole process. We need to improve the circulation. So just generally eating enough is really helpful. Getting some movement. So just ideally, if you can aim for like the 10,000 steps a day, that's great. If you're like where I was, like chronic fatigue syndrome, bedridden, and the thought of saying, I'll even go for a 2,000 step walk is just completely out of the window. Just do the best that you can, but get the blood moving as much as we can. There are other things that we could do, like in step 6, where we're going to be mobilizing from the cell. Some things here work with some of these other modalities. So step 5 is literally just improve circulation. The only thing that targets this specifically is movement, but some of the things that we do in step 6 will also help here. So moving on to step 6. This is where real detoxification begins to happen. Up until now, we've literally just been trying to move the toxicity out of the body that has been in circulation. And we've been trying to create an opening in the drainage pathways so that whatever toxicity the body chooses to release has a drainage pathway. It has somewhere to go so that it can leave the body. Step 6, which is where we're at now, this is where, in my opinion, detox actually starts to happen. This is where we start to pull toxins out of the deep storage site. So mold toxins being fat soluble, these are stored in the nervous system. These are stored in myelin. So this is like the fatty substance around the brain and the nervous system tissues. They are stored in subcutaneous and visceral fat. They are stored in the organs. They're stored anywhere where we have higher densities of fat. And we've got 3 primary modalities that could be really helpful at kind of shaking these fatty tissues to bring those toxins out. But again, I just have to emphasize, if you skip to this step and you have not done every single other step in this process, you are probably not going to feel very good. And you not feeling good is your body telling you, please stop doing this. You are not helping it. So don't jump to this step. You have to do these other things first. So we have 3 primary modalities. The first is sauna. Any type of sauna is going to help to move these fat-soluble toxins out of the deep storage sites. There is an argument that the infrared type sauna is more effective. So you could look at doing that, but any sauna will work. And actually, if you look at the science, any sort of modality that increases the body temperature will increase the excretion of mycotoxins. So whilst I'm saying sauna, technically even a hot bath, like hot Epsom salt baths, will have a very similar effect. It's also very nice, a little additional added bonus that when we use heat therapies like hot baths, saunas, we boost the amount of heat shock proteins that we have in our body, which can also be really, really helpful at removing spike proteins. So just a little added bonus for you there, because I know that's something that anybody that is health conscious kind of has lingering in the back of their mind. So not only is this going to help with mobilizing mycotoxins out of the cell, it's also going to boost the production of heat shock proteins, which break down the spike protein. My recommendation for getting started with this would be, if you are going to use a sauna, you want to get in the sauna and you want to start sweating. So you go for the time that it takes you to sweat plus 5 minutes. That's going to give you enough of an impact to start mobilizing toxicity. And then you can start to increase this 1 minute at a time. We really don't have to go much further than this to be effectively mobilizing toxicity. And it's much more important to have a frequent usage of the sauna versus doing like 3 cycles of a sauna. So as in, we go in, we go out, we go in, we go out, we go in, we go out. We need 1 cycle of sweat plus 5 minutes as many times as we can. So like 7 days a week would be ideal. Even if you do this once a week, it will still have an effect. I'd say the sweet spot for most people tends to be about 3 days a week, because you also have to be realistic in that who's got time for sauna 7 days a week? I don't know, maybe you do. I used to have a hot bath every single day because I was literally disabled from mold toxicity. So depending on where you're at, do what works for you. As I mentioned in a previous point, combining the sauna with activated charcoal can be really, really helpful. So you could take the charcoal before or after. And if you do use a sauna, it's really important that you shower afterwards. Most of the toxins that you mobilize are not actually going to come through the skin. You're going to pull the toxins out of the cell, and then they're going to go through this liver pathway that I just explained. But some of them will come through the skin. And it's important that we try to wash these off as much as possible. It's only going to be like 5 or 10% of the total toxins that you mobilize, but it still adds up, you know, and you're probably going to smell very bad after you do the sauna, especially have a lot of toxins coming out. That tends to make the body odor not smell so good. So that's definitely something worth combining with activated charcoal. Next, for mobilizing toxicity out of the cell, we have fasting. Fasting is the most profound healing modality that any animal on earth has access to. All animals can fast. You don't see like giraffes doing coffee enemas or hippos doing juicing, you know, but every single animal can fast. And this is because it is nature's most profound healer. It is probably the most effective way to shake toxicity out of the cell, because when you're in a fasted state, your body is running on body fat, which means that during the whole time that you're fasted, you are actively pulling the deepest levels of mycotoxins from the cell, literally constantly. So it's really important that when we start fasting, we do it gently, because we are really going to aggressively pull toxins out of these deep storage sites. I actually, surprise, surprise, have a step-by-step guide to start fasting. I know some people that are like, I just want to jump in, I'm going to do 72 hours with water or a 5-day dry fast. I strongly discourage you from doing that. You actually get far more of a better benefit from doing multiple short-term prolonged fasts. So what I mean by this is we're fasting for between 24 and 36 hours. Fasting itself is very complex, and it does have some things you need to be aware of. So I'm actually not going to go into this in more detail, because I really want you to watch the full step-by-step guide for how to start fasting, because there are levels that we can build up where we even incorporate things like juicing or bone broth fasting so that we can make it a little bit more gentle so that we don't overwhelm and shock your body. Again, you have to remember, doing this correctly will make it faster. It's not about suffering. It's not about making yourself have horrible detox symptoms. This does not mean that you're detoxing better. It means you're detoxing worse. Your body doesn't want to have symptoms. If you have symptoms, if you're having a Herxheimer reaction, you are doing it wrong. You need to mobilize these things gently and carefully and work with your body. And fasting is, of everything on this list, the most aggressive mobilizer of toxins that we have. So please, before you fast, watch the video. I put a lot of effort into making these videos so that you can actually heal efficiently and effectively. And if you don't watch the video, it's literally like, you're literally like slapping me in the face. Like, please don't slap me in the face. Please watch the video on fasting, because I want you to have a good experience and I want you to heal fast and in a painless way. So third, this is a bit of a maybe controversial option, but I have found this to be very, very profoundly effective, is bioresonance. Bioresonance is a bit of one of these like woo-woo kind of quackery things that a lot of people don't believe in. In my experience, it has triggered some of the most profound detox reactions in my body I have experienced of any modality ever. I would say it parallels fasting, maybe even surpasses fasting. The thing is, this is an external modality that we are imposing on the body. The reason I really like fasting is we're allowing the body to be in control, so it can choose how fast to mobilize. I think this is why, for me, bioresonance was way too strong, is because my body wasn't ready to mobilize that level of toxicity yet, and I imposed the detox on it. So I will say, this is not for everyone, and it doesn't work for everyone, but for those that it does work for, it is extremely effective. But it's completely optional. You don't need it. You can 100% do this just with the sauna and fasting and all of those other steps previously alone. You don't need bioresonance. But I've seen profound results from it, so I did think it was worth sharing. I do offer a group bioresonant detoxification program. If you have any interested, I will leave a link again in the description below so that you can join the wait list, because we do these detoxes maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So if you have interest in joining that, you can sign up to the waitlist. I will notify you when we do another group program. But I do want to emphasize, again, in this video, I'm really literally, I do not want to sell you anything. The only thing I want to sell you is the belief that you can heal and that this is the path to do it. So I really want to emphasize that bioresonance, completely optional. You do not have to do it. You can heal without it. Fasting, in my opinion, is probably better, but the bioresonance is nice because you don't have to do anything. Fasting is hard. Bioresonance is easy. You just do nothing. So that has been my updated step-by-step guide to heal from mold illness. This hopefully has helped you understand exactly how the mycotoxin will leave your body, how it goes from wherever it is to leaving the body. This is the step-by-step process, and I've given you as many of these supports, modalities, supplements, and suggestions that I can to support you at each step through this process. And if you've watched all the way to the end, I have to share something with you. If you are still living in a moldy environment, if you're still being exposed to mold and to mycotoxins, your body is never going to get past step 3. Your body will never choose to mobilize stored toxicity in an environment that is actively exposing you to mold toxins. Your body is intelligent, and it's never going to go into clearing out its debt if it's still exposed. So the number one thing that I tell every single person that I talk to that is embarking on a journey to heal from mold toxicity is the number one thing that you can invest in, the number one thing that you should spend your money on isn't the supplement, isn't the coffee enema, isn't all of the things that I talk about today. Is a clean and safe living environment. Because if you don't have that, it is possible to heal, but it's literally like pushing a boulder up a hill. I have seen countless people try to heal in mold, and as soon as they leave the environment, it's like everything just catapults forward. It's like they can make so much more progress. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily an easy thing to do. I lived in mold for 3 years knowing that it was poisoning me because I couldn't figure out how to get out of that environment. And I planned, and it took me 5 years to get to the point where I was living in a 0 mold environment. But it was the single best thing I did in my whole healing journey to help me recover from mold and mold toxicity. So I have to emphasize this to you. This guide is, in my opinion, and I'm biased because I invented it, it is, in my opinion, the best guide to help you recover from mold illness. But I can tell you that it will not work if you don't leave that environment. It's going to be really, really challenging. I have seen people do it. I've seen 6 or 7 people do it. I would strongly discourage you from trying. I really, really have seen how much they've suffered, how hard it has been, and how much faster progress they could have made if they were just in a clean environment. So I hope you now feel well equipped to tackle this situation. If you are an individual that wants a little bit of extra help, maybe you like the sounds of this approach and you just want a second brain to help you figure out how to implement it, because I know what it's like having that mold brain fog is not good. It's not a good headspace to be to try to figure out such a complex chronic health problem. Or maybe you just feel like you want someone to work through this with. I would be really happy to do that. This is literally my full-time job. I've dedicated my life to helping people heal these types of chronic health problems. So if you feel like you need a little bit of extra support, shoot me an email, support@williamdickinson.co.uk, and I'd be really happy to work with you on resolving this. And if you have any other questions or you have some insights to share, please leave me a comment in the comment section below. Hope this has been really helpful and impactful, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.